Welcome to Latent Treasures, a uniquely uplifting podcast filled with inspiring guests to brighten your week. Our show takes inspiration from a lesser-known quote from C.S. Lewis. What we want is not more little books about Christianity, but more little books by Christians on other subjects, with their Christianity latent. While I love books, this is 2020. And let's face it, audio is a lot easier to produce. But you are more than welcome to think of our little podcast as a bunch of little books about various topics, lived by ordinary people. But these people are quite extraordinary in the way their faith drives them and fuels their journey. Journeys on which they're making profound impacts on everyone around them. We hope you'll be blessed by these stories and recognize that inside each of us is the ability to be similarly extraordinary. If you like our show, please subscribe. And if you find any individual show special, please like it and share it freely. Today we interview one of the fitness industry's first popular figures, including the popular fitness TV show Gotta Sweat on ESPN, and 3 decades later, he remains a constant fitness influence. He's a 2-time member of the Kung Fu Hall of Fame with over 4 decades of Kung Fu training, mainly focused in combat or San Tzu, and the internal arts of Qigong and Tai Chi. He founded and still runs his martial arts and fitness studio named The Village with Gus Gates, and is a sought-after speaker on Zen and self-protection. Additionally, Sifu Gus Gates hosts 2 YouTube shows, Are You Safe and King Kong Palm, and has accomplished all of these while also being a father of 2 great kids who are now both grown. We will post his social links in the show notes, and you can check them out there fully on our website, bethechurch.org. We also want to thank the people who helped make today's show possible, including Cheyenne Summers, who provided our cover art, and Mary Rogers, who has provided our show music. Their contact information is also in our full show notes on our website. Please visit their sites to support them and their music and art, as they're both amazing and I know they'd love you to investigate their work further. But now, without further ado, we're honored to introduce you to Sifu Gus Gates. So welcome, Gus Gates. Sifu Gus Gates, good time to see you. Long time
Nice
no
to
see
see
for
you.
sure.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Welcome to Coronavirus Recording 101.
Exactly right. It's so weird. So weird going, when I go to my studio and I'm there at night, it's just so weird because no one's in any of the buildings, but me in there doing whatever I'm doing, So it's definitely a weird thing, see no one around.
Yeah. Are your teachers able to come in at times too?
Yeah, everyone. I mean, the teachers, they can come in, and if they're going to train or they got something going on, they can do that. But it's still just weird. It's just I'll pull in the parking lot. Generally, it's always packed, and it's just my car. It's just weird to see that,
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Well, I'd love to start, obviously, just kind of getting a little bit of your background. And for those who don't know, I met Sifu, gosh, it's almost been 20 years.
Yeah.
Actually, it was easily because it was before my oldest was born.
Yeah, this is true.
And he's 19. So I met Gus actually through another mutual friend who mentioned that he was the guy to talk to if I wanted to learn about kickboxing. Because at the time, I was going to a gentleman named Clyde. I was going to his kickboxing classes, and I thought, this is awesome. How do you learn to do this stuff? And he's like, you got to meet Gus.
You got to meet the man.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So you had obviously already been established, right? In many levels, both from a martial arts standpoint as well as on the fitness side. Yeah. I know you grew up in East Palo Alto, so that's not an easy place to grow up. Um,
It has its challenges. I learned how to run real fast until I learned how to fight.
yeah. So tell me about how this all started. So did your family ask you or encourage you to get involved in martial arts, or was this
No, not
purely?
at all. Not at all. Actually, it's interesting because a cousin who was a Vietnam vet, uh, a cousin of mine and his son were doing martial arts to start with, and basketball was my thing. So the head sensei, it was a Taekwondo school. The head instructor would train, and then they would play basketball after. So I'm like, oh, martial arts and basketball, I'm in. I'm 11 and I'm 11 years old, and it was really cool. But then later, I met my what would become my first real instructor. And I trained with him. It was basically, you clean. It's the old Miyagi thing. You clean, I teach. So that's kind of how it was with a group of us
A
trained.
little trade.
Yeah. So I learned some good foundation, some good traditional stuff, and it was really, really, really good. And then I met my second instructor later once I moved to Southern California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where did I remember some stories from our past where you shared, like you said, to a degree, you clean, I train. When did it start to become? I know that you had some teachers who were very hard on you, frankly, right? And to a
Yeah.
degree, there's some
Yeah.
reality behind that. When did that start?
Well, well, my original instructor was pretty hard on us. He taught. He was an old Chinese man, basically. He taught traditional, and his whole mentality is that this is not voluntary. If you're not here to learn, then go home. If you're not gonna come on the days we choose to train, because it wasn't like what I have at my school, where there's a class on Monday and Wednesday and Friday. You'd be like, okay, we're training on this Friday, the 5th of this, and then you have to be there. And if you can't be there, don't come back. Um, I wanted to learn. I saw one of his students like just demolish 3 people. So I was like, well, that's what I want to learn, because I grew up in East Palo Alto and I had to know how to defend myself. So I got lucky, and I was blessed to have a few scenarios where he was like, my son doesn't want to learn it, so I want to teach it to you now. So I trained it with him till I was about 18, 17, 18, and then moved to Southern California.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so you just recently told me about the moniker of East Palo Alto, just so other people understand how rough it is.
Yeah,
Share that with
1992.
us.
Yeah, 1992 was murder capital of the United States.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was bad. It was there was a bad time. It's actually so interesting when I go back now, and you see some of everybody there. The house of the night. It's really. I'm very happy for East Palo Alto. That a lot of change in a positive direction.
Oh, that's awesome.
But we didn't know any better. We were kids. We you survive. You hear bad things and you see bad things, but you can't put it in a context of, this is happening here. This is not happening everywhere.
Yeah.
You know. So there was a lot of great life lessons that I learned about survival and growing up in East Palo Alto. East Palo
I
Alto taught me
imagine.
quite a bit. Actually, a lot of principles I learned in East Palo Alto, I still teach in my combat classes today.
I
You
can
know.
only imagine. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I grew up near some bad parts of town. I grew up near Chicago, and obviously, when I think of Myrtle capital of the world, my
You
childhood
think of
was.
a big city.
I think of Washington D.C. '80s,
Right.
right?
Right.
Or Chicago now.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but
Yeah.
um, but there are, especially like you said, when you're a child, you don't necessarily know the difference.
Right.
You're just trying to avoid it. Was that
Right.
something that was constantly on your mind? Like, were you dodging trouble all the time?
It's weird because I knew it existed. I wasn't afraid of it. I knew that there were bad people, but I wasn't. I didn't walk around with a fear. I think, I believe it or not, I think I'm more cautious now as an instructor than I was as a 14-year-old kid in East Palo Alto. You just saw bad things, and you just kind of, they were on that side, you were on that side, and you kind of went on about that. And there's bad groups that I just didn't get involved in. So, and I just kind of stayed, like I say, stay. I think what I realized, I stayed below the radar, while everyone was doing all the crazy stuff, all the real gangsters and all that stuff. I was like, okay, I'm going this way. I'll be over here,
Yeah.
And that's just how you survive that way.
And was that instilled partly from your teachers too? Or was it just you're too busy to worry about getting involved in the wrong stuff?
It's a combination of a lot of things. One, my mother, who raised me, would have never tolerated that. But she gave me some pretty stern stories. Like I had to learn how to be a man. Like I had to learn how to survive. And I had to learn that if, like there was no such thing as bullying to her. And she grew up in Mississippi in the 30s. So you could only imagine, And so her whole mentality was, you're going to have to learn how to be strong, and I always tell my students, I say, I'm a mama's boy. And then I tell them stories about my mom. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe that she did that to you. I can't believe she made you do that. And I'm like, well, that's what you had to do. And my story is not unique. There's a lot of stories where people had to do that. And then having an instructor who says, listen, what I'm showing you is not for somebody to use recklessly, Then, of course, growing up in church, Baptist church, so yeah. So there's a lot of great components at the same time that kept me on the right road. And not to mention great family. I have a great grandmother and grandfather. And I mean, they're just great people. So I was lucky that I was drawn toward all that stuff, versus, the street stuff. The street stuff just didn't do it for me for whatever reason, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you come to Southern California. What brought you down?
Well, it's interesting you say that. So what we realized in Northern California, that if I wanted to at least try to, get a more advanced education and go to a college, being from East Palo Alto is going to be a hard thing to do. Really, not a lot of people were being looked at up there. So my sister, who is a brain, she's, she put herself through college and all that stuff. She's like, why don't you move? They were living in Inglewood at the time. And then she says, why don't you come down here and move with us? And then we can see if we can get you seen by colleges and stuff like that. Well, and I go, hemmed and hawed, and I thought about it, and I go, I didn't want to leave my mom in East Palo Alto by herself. And then I end up moving, and my sister goes, oh, by the way, we moved to this wonderful place called Simi Valley. And I'm like, Simi Valley? What's a Simi Valley? Talking about culture shock when I went down there. But I played for Simi High 1 year. 1 year I played for Simi High, and ended up playing at Moore Park College after that. But yeah, that's what brought me down, my sister.
Okay. And so this was still basketball?
Yeah.
Okay. And then did anything progress beyond Moore Park College, or
where'd not really.
Go? Okay.
Yeah, I started, my decision was to go down the road, and I wanted to start, getting in the business world is what my head was. I actually got a job offer, kind of what they call an intern now, working for Exxon. Before it was Exxon Mobil.
Yeah.
And my sister, she just thought it was a terrible idea. Get your education, but you're young and they're putting money in your hand. No, and I had to work for everything I had. Nothing was like, oh, we would take care of this. So it was I enjoyed it, but then I started getting into the fitness industry later, and then keep training in martial arts, and then realized that's what I wanted to do. Martial arts and helping people was my thing.
Wow. Okay. And what was it, just because of your involvement in training as a martial artist? What inspired you? Obviously, your basketball and athletic career, and trust me, I certainly get that.
Yeah.
What made you pivot from the business world towards the fitness world, and what made you confident that was going to be a fitness and martial arts world, that it was going to be a stable path to, maybe not stable, but you wanted you wanted to do it.
Considering the studio's closed at this point. Well, what's funny, Chad? I wish I could tell you, but something drove me to do it. One of the things I've always loved helping people. How I started, I don't know if you know the story, how I started cardio kickboxing. I gained a lot of weight. I was 20 something years old, and I gained a lot of weight. And I would always go into, and this was 1988, I think, 88 or 89, one of two. And I used to always go into I would ask the front desk people, can I go into the aerobic room and just kind of work on some stuff? And they're like, oh yeah, it'd be the middle of the day, no one's there. I would go on. I had a whole, like a shoebox full of cassette tapes. So you know how you have your favorite song at this spot, so you put the cassette tape in, and then one of the aerobic directors walked in and goes, "What is that you're teaching? What is that what is that you're doing?" I go, "Well, it's my workout, you know." And she goes, and at that point I didn't really have a job or anything like that. And she goes, she goes, "Can you teach that in a class?" And I'm like, "I don't know." She goes, "It pays." I go, "Well, of course I can." Of course I can. Well, and that's, her name is Kathy Beaton at the time, it's Kathy Staley now. And she really helped me. Like, all the aerobic instructors were so kind. They were like, "Well, this is how you put a class together. This is how you do this. This is how you do that." And they're like, "We really like what you do. We just don't know what it," because I would put a combination of kung fu and dance and all that stuff together. And they were just like, "We would watch you for hours." Because I would go in there and I would come out just drenched, you know. And they would like, "We'd watch you for hours in there. You would come out and and we didn't know what it was you were doing. I'd never seen anything like that before. And that started the kickboxing career right there.
That's crazy. Yeah, and tell our listeners a little bit about that, because I know you had quite an illustrious kickboxing and cardio fitness career.
Yeah, so in Conejo Valley, I was the person who brought cardio kickboxing to the Conejo Valley. Matter of fact, I think at the time, the LA Times did an article with myself and Billy Blanks. I think we were the only two doing it in California, period, that they could find. And so I taught for almost all the health clubs. I was driving from, Newbury Park to Manhattan Beach. I mean, I was driving Sports Club LA. I mean, I was working like every night. I had like 2 clubs I would go teach kickboxing class. Of course, I'm a lot younger then.
No, I get it.
And it was fun. And it was actually, the industry at that time was a lot of fun. Everybody was really cool. No matter what club I went to, the aerobic instructors, the aerobic managers, everybody, the gym people were really, really cool. And then I was teaching a class at a place called Quest Fitness. It was in Woodland Hills, I want to say. And then I see this lady comes up and just drop dead, knockout, gorgeous. And I'm like, well, if she wants to talk to me, I'm definitely going to talk to her. And she tells me her name is Corey Everson. And I'm like, okay, Corey, nice to meet you. She goes, I'm thinking about doing a show and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, we live in Southern California. Everybody wants to either be an actor or whatever. So what I didn't realize, as Corey was 6-time Miss Olympia, she was currently on a show called Body Shaping on ESPN, and she was getting ready to have her own show. And of course, I'm still this way to this day. When they're like, you should do a movie, me and you, we gonna do this thing. I'm kind of like, yeah. Come train on the floor first, and we'll talk about it. But I come to find out that I talked to some friends who knew who she was. I didn't know who she was at the time. They come to realize
there wasn't Google to look her up.
I didn't know Google to look her up. And so I didn't realize she was from fitness. She was the top of the food chain. I didn't realize that at the time. So of course she gave me a number. I called her back. Corey, it's nice to meet you. And she goes, can you meet, blah, blah. And she just was awesome. Really understood my naivety toward that end of the industry and really nurtured me. And she really acted like a big sister. Took me to Hawaii. And then through all that, I got to go to Europe and Russia. I had a great time in Russia one time, and in England, and it was just really cool, really, really cool. I didn't get a chance to see all the parts of Europe, but I did get a chance to travel teaching kickboxing and doing conventions at the Anaheim Convention Center in Las Vegas and stuff like that. Wow. So it was fun.
Now, was that with her? Because I know you did some fitness videos, and I know you were on TV a couple times, right? If I recall correctly.
So our show, Corey's show, was called Gotta Sweat. It was on ESPN. It was actually on 5 days a week. So health clubs would, unbeknownst to me, would make money and go, we have Gus Gates teaching here. Like, Gus Gates from Gotta Sweat? I'm like, and I had no idea. They had no idea. I'm like, they come in, oh my God, I watch the show all the time. And it was really, really fun. I'm just thinking it's just I'm young. I think it's just fun. But I got to, and then from that, people were like, okay, this kickboxing thing, we got to really take some stock into this, figure this is the future of what's going to be taking place. So then I started doing more conventions and working. I actually worked for Nike, Reebok, and Adidas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I wouldn't sign an exclusive contract with anybody because I was, once again, it was fun for me. I wasn't thinking as a businessman. I was thinking about, oh my God, I get to interact. I get to, here's a little boy from East Palo Alto gets to go to Russia for free. and get paid to do his job, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful experience at that time.
Yeah. And man, did it blow up, right?
Yeah, kickboxing really blew up. Matter of fact, I'll tell people now, there's a Gold's Gym in Thousand Oaks. I go, you see what he's teaching right there? I'm the person who actually brought that here. I'm that guy now. I'm that guy. You know, back in the day, I'm that guy. Yeah. So it's fun. And people are like, are you going to start teaching again? I'm like, no. I've had some reunion classes, and I've had people drive from like over an hour and a half to come take the class. You know, and they're like, are you going to do it? So you never know. It may happen again.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I appreciate in the fitness industry is thankfully gotten a lot better. And I think a lot of the interactiveness and all of the just information ages, I think helped improve the fitness industry a lot. But I know one of the things I loved the most about working with you is you kind of taught me how to teach and some of the principles that you instilled early on. Was just the need for safety. I remember like it was yesterday how you almost made it a deal breaker. Like if you're going to teach, you need to become certified. Don't just be a fitness instructor, but go get your personal training certification, learn about the human body, because if you're teaching people movements that are dangerous to them, it'll rip them apart. And ultimately that comes back obviously to the teacher potentially as well as the gym. But at what point did that become something that you knew had to be so critical?
It comes from Kung Fu. My thing, I still to this day, I tell people, I say, listen, here's the reality. If you want to get a black sash with me, which is our version of black belt, you're going to have to take this almost, and I know it sounds crazy when I say this, but you know this being an athlete, you almost have to be obsessed about about becoming good at something. You can't just participate. And one of the things I love about teaching, whether it's fitness or if I help people or I've trained people, one of the things I do is I always say, listen, guys, I want you to be good. I'm going to give you my 110%, my 120%, and I need yours. If we're going to waste our time, then it's just not worth it, you know? And I'm that way in Kung Fu now. Matter of fact, and our school's been open 21 years, and in 21 years, we've only given out 14 black sashes. We don't give out a lot of them. Yeah. And where most schools are up in the hundreds and stuff like that, we only give out 14 because we really want people to get the experience, and all 14 of them can really sit down and break it down to the nth degree on what movement is. And that's just the way I teach, you know?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So for those who don't know, you're involved in a number of varieties of Kung Fu, correct?
Yes.
And for people who aren't familiar with martial arts or the varieties of martial arts, obviously there's a lot of super popular ones, karate, and now, you know,
jiu-jitsu,
all the grapplings and jiu-jitsu. What if you were to kind of highlight the differences between a Kung Fu approach, especially the versions you teach with village fighting, and let's say, you know, probably the most popular, maybe not anymore, I haven't looked at the stats, but karate was around forever, right? And BJJ is now everywhere. What would you say kind of highlights those differences if people are curious about getting involved in martial arts, both for, you know, fitness as well as self-defense, as well as, you know, some of the principles and disciplines it teaches? How would you outline those?
Well, one of the things I love about Kung Fu, and the reason why I've stuck with Kung Fu for a long time, and is because, and I'm not sure if you know this, Kung Fu was the grandfather, they call Kung Fu the grandfather of all martial arts. So it's over, you know, a couple thousand years old. The Shaolin Temple was founded 1,500 years ago, and it was invented by Chan Buddhist monks. And so the concept is improvement, right? And so a lot of the styles have picked parts of Kung Fu. And what they've done culturally, they've made it theirs. Like karate, Kung Fu went to Okinawa, and then it became karate. And then culturally, it changed. Some of the grappling stuff from Japan has gone over to Brazil, and it became grappling. And that became the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so it really has a hand in every martial art Kung Fu has. Me personally, I love the spiritual side because I love watching a person coming in. I have a young man today, and he drives an hour and a half to come train with me 4 to 6 days a week. And he came and he goes, you know, I have anger issues. He's from South Central Lagos. I have anger issues, and I hear that you can help me. And I told him, I said, well, all I know is that the art's gonna make you angry. That's what I do know that. But what we realize, and that's the cool thing about the art, is you dig into yourself. There's nothing exterior about anything. This is about you as a person. And I love how it helps people. That's my passion. I love helping people. So that's what I love about Kung Fu. I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a great art. I think karate is a great art. I think you have to find an instructor that you can click with. Know what you want before you're going in there. Because, if you want to get, because there's some arts that do more fitness and some that do more combat. So you got to know what you want, and Ken and Art teach a combination of both. I'm often, even when people come into our studio, I go, know what you want, because, I don't want you to get on the floor and then say, well, I thought this was, ballroom dancing. I'm very clear with everybody as they come in. And I also let people know that this is hard, because even if you're not trying to change, the art, you can't help yourself in our system. The art is going to make you realize a few things. And I have some people who are really nice, sweet people, and they just say, gosh, I didn't realize that I have this habit, and I do this and I do that. And it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah. A lot of self-discovery.
Yeah. Without me saying you need to do this and you need to do that, I don't, they find it out on their own,
Yeah. Okay. So over 30 years teaching, your studio's been open over 21. You've been doing it for over 40 years in general yourself.
Yes.
We're going to get into a little bit about what you're doing right now. Obviously, some massive challenges with coronavirus, right? But where do you want to see the next 10 years look like?
Gosh, good question, and I do have an answer, believe it or not. My stake in this is, I talk to a lot of young people. We're talking about in their 20s. And I was lost in my 20s. I don't know about you, but I was like, okay, where am I going? What am I going to be? What am I going to do? But the difference is I was always working towards something. And I'm listening to a lot of these kids. They're talking about, anxiety and depression and different things like them being lost. And, they're being influenced by this influencer and influenced. There's so much information that's being put inside them that they're starting to get off the road. And one of the things I told them, I said, listen, one of the things that the art will do for you is allow you just to kind of go in deep and say, oh, okay, I'm not a bad person, or I can overcome that. I'm not a piece of glass. And that's what I want to share, because that's how it helped for me coming from East Palo Alto to where I'm at now. That's how it's helped me. And we've developed this system of training that we didn't really invent it. It's been around for a long time. But we really have encapsulated an understanding to really help people move forward if they want to move forward. So I hope that it used to be in all martial arts across the board, but then commercialism got in, and then some people realized, well, I like lots of money, and sometimes it's hard to do something real and gain massive financial reward, especially in the martial art business. And some people are lucky enough to have done it. And I'm like, no, bless you, that's awesome, We, on the other hand, we take one person at a time, and we want to help them. How can we help them? That's kind of where we are.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me, if I think about just my observations of your life practice since I've known you, and hearing stories about before I knew you, that a lot of the martial arts philosophies, as well as, like you said, growing up in a Baptist church, so some of the spiritual influences that you've had in your life definitely seems to be pervasive,
Absolutely.
Throughout these path, the whole path.
Yeah.
And I know you work with kids still, even like under 18, minors. I know you work a lot with women, some of whom have had some really rough experiences, and they've come to you for hopefully learning how to. With the objective of learning how to protect themselves.
Yes.
I know you've dealt with people in really high-risk situations, whether it be military or people in the airlines industry after 9/11. Yeah. Do you see, or I guess maybe just speak to how, other than just the technical art, right? the necessity essentially for that other element, that, there's the mental health wellness, there's the physical body
Right.
capabilities and wellness, but
Right.
there's also that spiritual side. Can you
Absolutely.
imagine teaching without it?
No. For us in the village fighting system, it's important to understand that you have to have there's four parts that you have to have. You have to have the physical, because the body doesn't have to be in extreme shape, but it has to be functional enough, and it goes down the road of health. The mental state to say, this is where I'm at. You know, I don't need to read 1,000 books a day or drink some elixir that makes me smarter. It's just, this is where I'm at. And then the emotional part. The emotional part is what I found is the hardest part to teach some people, because they get triggered because of whatever happened in their past or the way they believe things. And I tell them, I said, this is not about that. This is about understanding that if I put a chocolate bar in front of you, you all of a sudden just attack me. You know, you need to know that that takes place. And then the spiritual side is where you sum total everything, and we call it harmony. Where we are is when you're moving in that the psychologists and the scientists call it the flow state. That everything, like, it's just matter of fact, we in sports we probably would call it the zone. You know, that you're functioning at such a level. And here's the interesting thing about this: anyone can do it. You know, but you have four parts that you kind of got to balance out. For me, I look at things in yin and yang. So I get people come in and they have all kind of. I had one lady who I've never thrown a punch in my life, and I'm afraid, and she ended up becoming probably one of the best fighters that we've had. I've had a big guy who come in, big muscles, and he just couldn't get past the emotional side. And so my job is to kind of navigate everybody, and that's what I want to share. And it's hard to do. You've played sports, Chad, so you know this. There's a huge not only mental component to it, and I remember when you were playing football, mental component and an emotional component to it. You know, and you have to keep them in check. You know, and that's a hard thing to do. It's a really, really hard thing to do, especially on our floor when people are throwing punches and kicks you and kicks at you and try to throw you to the ground, and you have to keep yourself in check. So one of the things we want people to learn in our system is how to remain calm on the inside. And that's I haven't met one person who come in and they're just deadpan calm. And we've had masters from other systems, we've had athletes, we've had everybody, and they all have that arousal point that they have to kind of get into that calm place.
Oh yeah, well,
But
I
they
mean,
love it when they're there.
that nature of combat, right? That's fight or flight. There's
Yeah,
nothing calm about either of those, right?
yeah, right, right.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about China. I know you started a handful of years ago. Man, time flies. It's probably like a
I
decade.
know. Yeah, actually, I started going in 2005.
Okay, so more than a decade. Jeez.
Yeah, so I've been going since 2005. I trained at the Shaolin Temple Monastery School, and I trained at the Wudang Monastery. And Chad, it's awesome. One of the things I love about going there, well, we're way out in the sticks, by the way. We're not in the big cities or anything like that. And the monks are so cool. They're just nice people. They're like the farmer or the good old boy or the grandma in the hood who just say, "Come in, let's have some." I mean, they're just kind and nice. And one of the things that they try to get across to you is to learn about yourself, you know. And it's interesting watching other Westerners come there, and if everybody come there with this preconceived notion. But our first year I went, our classes were 7.5 hour days. And that's punching, kicking, jumping. We didn't do any fighting, but it was punching, kicking, jumping. You're getting up at 5 in the morning, running at 5:30. And the days are just long. It's not what I was used to. Um, but they were encouraging, they were kind, and they just trained really, really hard. We would do in one day what most people would do in maybe a week and a half.
Wow, that falls in line. I've certainly heard stories of, like, you know, Chinese children and school children. Their day is not an American school day at all, right? That
At
sounds
all.
sounds
Yeah.
similar. Now, did you
Yeah.
originally go just on your own accord, or did you and a group of friends decide, hey, let's go do this?
I originally got invited by a grandmaster to go, and then it's for whatever reason it didn't work out, and then I ended up going with a friend of mine, small group. I think there was like 6 of us or something, 7 of us. And we had no idea what we were getting into. We were joking about, oh, we're never coming back. We're having fun with it. And we stayed in the dormitory, and they're like, oh, it's a 3-star American hotel. Well, probably about a half a star, probably half a star. And they were, you get 2 hours of hot water a night. You had to be down because once they shut the kitchen down, there's no more food. You had to be down at specific times. But it was awesome. It was a lot of time. One of the people ask me how I'm doing during the coronavirus. But one of the things I've learned over the years is, you get over there, you get a lot of alone time. You go do your training, but then you get time to go off and sit places and just kind of meditate. And it's just really, really cool that you get connected on another level. And I like it. And speaking of kids, I see those kids over there, man, and they're 7 years old, and they're up at 5 a.m, and they still got mathematics and history and science. They got to learn all of it, and they still got their kung fu training. And at 6 o'clock at night, these kids who are 7, 8, 9 years old are smiling and they're happy. That was and I got back and I told my kids, I said, it was just interesting seeing. Of course, I get back and during 2005, and my kids would be like, oh, I'm tired. I'm like, we've only been going 10 minutes. Come on, And of course, I probably was a little bit harder on them once I got back, because I'm like, that's it. You can do everything that they can do, And so, but it was amazing. I mean, you sit there and you talk to these little kids, and they're just, they've been up since 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's 6 p.m. and they're happy, and they're walking around and they're practicing. And I'm like, wow. And I've always said this to my students. I go, they don't have anything that you don't have when it comes to the way you're designed. I go, you can do it. You don't need to go train that long. I go, but you can learn to enjoy yourself and be calm and get good at kung fu and do good in school and stuff like that. So it was actually eye-opening to see that, the younger people and the older people. And then the older people were just amazing. I'm just like, I couldn't keep up with half of them. I'm like, wait a minute, you're 68 years old. You're 73 years old. How are you able to do this like every day? Like, I get to go home. I get to go home. This is your normal lifestyle.
It's their normal life. And did they have any responses? Did you get any insight there?
Their response is what I told the kids. They're like, you can do this. You can do this. Their whole thing was, they were just encouraging. They're like, of course, you can do this. Keep practicing kung fu. You'll do it. You'll live long. Keep practicing kung fu. Because it's interesting. The city at the time, I don't know what the numbers were then, but the city where the Shaolin Temple is, Dongfang, I guess there's a city right below it. It has 600,000 people in it now. And probably about 80% of that city practices Kung Fu.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's Kung Fu everywhere. Literally, I say the Kung Fu, like it's literally a Kung Fu town, if you will. Yeah. I always tell my friends who practice Kung Fu, I say, you got to go just to see it. It's crazy just to see it, But everyone is not caught up in everything else. They're caught up in themselves. They want to work on themselves. And that's what I really, really enjoy,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've tapped into even some of that here in Southern California, right? I've seen there's times you go down to Chinatown, and there's practicing going on in the plaza.
Yeah, I love going to Chinatown. I've been going for a long time, and I've become really good friends with the grandmasters down there, and these guys are they welcome me in. And once again, I'm a little kid, so I kind of sit in the corner, I just kind of watch everything. And they come, they chat with me, and then they find out what I do and who I am. And now they send me, some of them just got phones. Like when I say not just got a new phone, just got a phone. So they'll text me, and it's like a person who's never texted before. It's like all these hieroglyphs and emojis, but it's just great wisdom that they pass down, and I sit there and I eat it up. And I was that way when I learned how to actually formalize a class in cardio kickboxing. I sat there and I listened. Okay, this is what you do there. And I'm one of those people that, when the opportunity's there, I work really hard. Still at my age now, I'm like, I tell my students, I go, listen, I get up in the morning and I practice 8 forms, and I go for a 3-mile walk, and I do this. I go, with coronavirus, there's only so much you can do here, I go, but I still train, and they're just, and some of my students are like, how is he still doing it, but that's just the way I am. I love what I do because I know the benefits I've received from it, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what are you doing now with coronavirus going on? I know I've seen a little bit online with some of your activities. I know I've seen King Kong Palm.
Okay.
I know that's going on, but tell us about what you're doing right now.
So I have a couple of YouTube shows. One of them is that everyone should watch. It's called Are You Safe? There's 8 episodes on there. And they're like between 5 minutes and maybe 10, 11 minutes. And it's just quick self-defense scenarios. People hire me to come to their facilities and do self-defense, but well, during coronavirus, can't do it. So I got these episodes up before this whole thing happened. And it's like, what happens if you're in an elevator with a creepy person? What happens if you're in a car park? How to know your exits and stuff, different things like that. And it's just very quick tips that you don't have to be a martial artist. You don't even have to be an athlete. You can just look at the things and go, oh, okay, all right, I have to pay attention. And the cool thing about that, I've gotten so many messages from people say, you have no idea how that has helped me or how I, got myself out of a sticky situation. So it's fun. Like I said, I was only going to do one season, which I've done. We haven't decided if I'm going to do two, but it's really good. It encapsulates a lot of, just things that people know, but they don't think about, when they're out and about. Which is something that once all this stuff, when people start going back to their lives, whatever the version of that is, it's a good idea to keep that in. The other show is for martial artists. It's called King Kong Palm, and I do it with one of my Kung Fu brothers named Ron Sia, and I've known Ron for, 22, 23 years, actually longer than that. And we get on there and we try to have fun. It's comical, but we'll invite some masters on, and the whole concept is Kung Fu has a lot of different styles. So it's like saying high school, it's like, okay, what high school do you go to? We say we go to the Village High School. You say we go to the, this high school. So we interact with a lot of different Kung Fu masters and give information. And so it's been fun. It's been helpful. And we do some lives and stuff like that. So that's kind of what we've been doing with that stuff.
That's awesome. And both of those are on YouTube?
They're on YouTube on my Gus Gates YouTube channel.
Okay, and what's that address? Is it just YouTube/Gus Gates?
Yeah, if you just go Gus Gates YouTube, yeah.
Okay, and then the name of the episodes are King Kong Palm and Are You Safe?
Are You Safe? Yeah, King Kong Palm and Are You Safe? Yeah, it's fun. We have a good time. My partner he's a hoot. He's the comedy, of the group, but it's fun. We have a good time.
Yeah, I know I've seen one or two of them. They definitely are entertaining.
Yeah.
Are there ways for people to, or resources out there that you would point people to in this, until people are welcome to go back to a studio again, and train? Are there resources out there that you know of or that you've put up that are great ways for people to work on forms or work on kind of just an introduction to Kung Fu? And
actually, it's interesting you say that. If you go to my Gus Gates page, and there's some, I think it's Village. I think there's just Village training. I think it is, and you could. There's like some stances and forms and stuff like that you could practice. You don't have to be part of the village. You can just practice them yourself. My suggestion, if you want to go down the road of martial arts, do some research. Most people, when they come in, they don't do research and don't know what they want. And I try to help them. And I've even recommended other schools. I say, well, this school, I had one lady, she goes, I want to do Kung Fu, but I don't want to make contact with anybody. And I go, well, this is not your school. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, you could do that. And there's if you go to YouTube and type in Kung Fu forms, there's millions of them there. There's a lot of good content. But if you go to my page, then you can see some of the stuff that we do.
I have some follow-up questions or closing questions, but
okay.
Before I jump into those, are there topics you want to make sure we cover that our listeners just need to hear?
Well, everyone, one of the reasons why I say research martial arts, especially Kung Fu, Kung Fu was started to help people. Matter of fact, a lot of Kung Fu, one of the Indian monks brought some of the yogic practices in to the Shaolin Temple. And that's my version. Not every not every martial arts school is about that. Some martial arts schools are just about the fitness in martial arts. Some martial arts schools is just about the fighting in martial arts. I like sum total because I like to see the changes in people and I like to help people. And that's kind of the route I would advise when it comes to looking for something that generally martial arts speaks to people. If it's not kung fu, it may be karate. If it's not karate, then it's jujitsu. It may be something, and I like that aspect. If not, you can reach me I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, those things. I'm on Instagram at Village Sifu, and if you go to Gus Gates, you can find me on Facebook as well.
I'll be sure to put those links in our show notes too. But just out of curiosity, this just crossed my mind, but 21 years, right? Do you have any clue how many people, just from a martial arts side alone, right? Yeah. Students of Kung Fu, do you have any clue how many people you've touched?
It's
directly through your studio.
Oh, okay, through my studio. It's interesting. I'll tell you some funny story. I'll get messages from people and they go, "I really love your posts on Instagram and Facebook. It really helped me, through depression." But directly to the studio, it's thousands, in the thousands. Somewhere about 3,000-4,000, I would think.
Isn't that incredible, man? Yeah, and then you think outside of that circle, right? And
yeah. Because I'll hear stories that I've told from other people that they've heard from students of mine. They say, "Well, you said this." I'm like, "Oh yeah." Now I'm getting to the point. I'm like, "Wait, did I say that? Hold on." Yeah. Sounds like something I would have said. But it's at the end of the day, it's really about sharing. I feel that I've been blessed with a gift, and now my job is to now return the favor and give back.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely. I mean, I've trained with you a tiny bit, and I emphasize tiny, but and obviously I knew you a lot more in other ways rather than just Kung Fu, but you've had profound influence. And I think your wisdom and the way you carry yourself and approach life just comes through, even just in the conversation with you, right? Like you've been deeply impacted by all that you've come across and all you've been through. And I mean, you're an incredibly mature and wise person who really knows, and you speak carefully. You don't just retort, right? You speak very carefully, and I appreciate that. So I can only imagine how wide your reach is with the influence you've had on people. And that's why I wanted to have you on. I think people like you need to be celebrated, and if you can have a wider reach, I certainly want to help get more of you out there in the world, because you are making a massive impact. So thank you for your impact as well.
No, thank you. And thank you for your friendship. Man, you've been so cool. There's one time, I forgot there's something going on. I always try to help people. And I think it was just one of those things that didn't work out well. And all of a sudden, I think I opened up Facebook and you had wrote something. And I'm like, it was just, I think I had to save somewhere. It was just so nice and thoughtful and kind. And I'm like, and I when you said do this, and I was like, of course, absolutely. I go, you're one of the people that I regard as really cool people. Like I've known a lot of people, but every time we talk, it's like, "Hey man, what's going on? Oh, this is what's going on," so it's good. So thank you for everything as well. Thank you for doing this, by the way.
No, absolutely. We're hoping it can, however many people here,
right.
Few or many. We're just hoping.
Going for many.
Going for many. But to a degree, I ask this a little bit, but a little bit different. One of my follow-up questions or closing questions is, if you were to look at your life overall 5 years from now, what needs to take place for you to say that was the most successful I could have been over those 5 years?
It's interesting you asked me that. Early on, I met what I call my Jewish godfather, and he gave me some advice. He says, when you're done, when they no longer exist, you want people to have appreciated you, and whatever the time is I have on this planet, I want to be able to do good work, do good work, do God's work, and I want to leave. Now, this, and Not every. There's some people who have bitter taste in their mouth about me, but those people, thank God, are very few. But I want to walk away from this, and I want people to say, you did help me. That you really gave me something to think about. You didn't make it easy for me, which I wanted. And those are the things that's wealth to me. And that's what I want to give back. So, yeah.
A little bit different, similar question, but a little bit different. And I think you'll appreciate this one because it might actually bring out some different nuances. But when we finally do get to meet our creator, what do you want to hear him say to you about?
I have a feeling he's going to be like, I sent you every clue under the sun and you missed most of them, but you finally came around. I hope that I get a well done. You did a good job. You helped the way you were supposed to help.
Well, I mean, obviously none of us are perfect, right? And like you said, we're all the best people on earth are going to have people who have bad things to say here or there because we mess up. But no, I would definitely say you're well on that path. The amount of good that I've seen come out of you and the lives that you've touched is profound. And, I haven't even seen you in person in how many years?
After all this, we got to change that. We have to change that.
We do. We got to get back together.
Yeah.
All right. If there's any message that you want to leave the listeners, knowing that they might never hear from your wisdom again, is there one nugget that you would wish the listeners would carry with them?
Yeah, I would. I said, if everyone could understand the level of greatness that's in them, they would be blown away. Sometimes greatness is not vanity. It's not brought up in the way you look in the mirror. Sometimes your true greatness comes up when you've truly been tested, and that's, to me, that's important. And I think that, when we have a challenge like the coronavirus, people who have been locked in the house with their kids and they got to work and have them do schools, I go, these are the things, especially for parents, who have young kids. Guess what? Their kids are paying attention to their behavior right now, and those are the things that when a kid comes and, gosh, my mom, my dad were so stressed out, they're this and that, but they really kept it together. They did this. These are stories that your kids will tell to your grandkids, and your grandkids will tell to their grandkids. And I think that's once again, that's the true wisdom of learning, getting through this, and I hope that everyone understands that they have that in them no matter who they are,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much again for coming on and sharing.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You're a blessing and one of a kind in the way that obviously there's other kung fu teachers, but from your approach to teaching, from your personal demeanor to your smile, just the way you interact with people, the way everybody feels welcome and accepted and like they've got a best friend when they meet you. It's you have a fantastic way about you that I hope continues to bring foundational success at a minimum and profound success. Again, in the ways that you're talking about, right? In being able to help people and reach people and transform their lives. You're one of the great ones. So thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you a lot. And thank you for allowing me this platform to talk on. And I hope I didn't talk your ears off. And but
it's awesome.
And after we get done with all this, let's get together.
We will, definitely. Count me in.
All right, man. God bless you, man.
You as well.
All right.
I'll talk with you soon.
All right. Bye.